Cucunamakis, also known as the Elk Valley, is characterized by the Elk River, a 220-kilometer ribbon of blue that cuts its way through the mountains. The Elk Valley provides valley residents with drinking water, water for irrigation, and supports a thriving recreational fishing and outdoor adventure industry. Unfortunately, human activities such as infrastructure construction, resource extraction, and pollution can degrade water quality and put stressors on the ecosystem. At Elk River Alliance, we monitor water quality to make sure human activity does not degrade the Elk River watershed to unsustainable levels. The Elk River watershed spans from the Elk Lakes up north down to Lake Okanusa in the south. To assess water quality, we use the framework laid out by the Canadian Aquatic Biomonitoring Network, also known as CABIN. CABIN parameters measured can be grouped into three major categories: biological, chemical, and geophysical. Our monitoring program focuses on sampling 5 non-mine affected creeks: Boivin Creek, Alexander Creek, Coal Creek, Lizard Creek, and Morrissey Creek. Biodiversity is important to maintain a healthy ecosystem. Many species, such as this west slope cutthroat trout, rely on smaller organisms for food. To collect samples of animals in the water, we use the kicknet method. This is Elk River Alliance volunteer Chris Bush kicking up rocks upstream of the net. The current picks up any animals that might have been hiding and washes them right into the net. After 3 minutes of kicknetting, the samples are preserved, labeled, and sent off to a lab to be identified. The main types of species we collect are benthic macroinvertebrates, a fancy way of saying creepy crawlies that live on the bottom of the river. Some benthic invertebrates tell us a lot about the state of the environment. We call these species bioindicators. These stoneflies, for example, can only survive in good quality water with a lot of oxygen. We also collect samples for environmental DNA or eDNA analysis. We have to be extra careful not to contaminate the samples with our own DNA because that would skew the results. Any animal DNA that ends up in the water gets sequenced by a lab, and DNA pieces are analyzed to determine what animal they belong to. This instrument is called a YSI, and it is equipped with sensors that measure various parameters associated with water health, such as dissolved oxygen, pH, and conductivity. The sensors are connected to a data logger and display, which we use to record data. Dissolved oxygen is an especially important metric because some organisms, such as the stoneflies we saw earlier, can't survive in low oxygen water. Water gets oxygenated when it travels quickly along rocks and waterfalls and streams, and loses oxygen when it becomes still or heats up. We also take water samples and send them off to a lab to analyze the water for excess nutrients, petroleum hydrocarbons, and heavy metals. Geophysical parameters describe any actual physical properties of a stream. This can be useful when assessing what kind of habitat a stream can provide for animals to live in. We measure the width and angle of the stream as well as the water flow speed. Using these metrics, we can calculate the volume of water that flows through the stream. We also measure the dimensions of a subsample of rocks to estimate the surface area available for benthic invertebrates to live on. To measure temperature, we've deployed temperature loggers in 17 locations throughout the Elk Valley. The loggers measure temperature year-round and allow us to carefully assess seasonal and annual changes in temperature across the watershed. We also take water samples and use the YSI to measure the turbidity of the stream. Turbidity describes the amount of sediment or particulates in the water, which can increase due to storms and snowmelt, but also due to human activities such as construction and land development, clear-cut logging, and traffic. Excess sediment can be harmful to organisms by clogging up their gills, thereby preventing breathing and visually obscuring predators and prey. Additionally, if the river bottom changes from rocky to silty, fish can no longer lay their eggs in the crevices between rocks, removing vital spawning grounds for salmonids such as the west slope cutthroat trout. All of the biological, chemical, and geophysical metrics we measure get analyzed using a single statistical model that we use to assess stream health. The statistical model is complicated but can be visualized using these ellipses. By comparing a stream we measured in the Elk River watershed to streams we know are healthy, we can determine if water health is degrading. If the stream of interest is in the green circle, we assume it's pretty healthy, but the further away it is from the healthy streams, the lower we suspect the water quality to be. The Elk River Alliance works hard to monitor watershed health, and we could always use a hand. If your idea of fun is being outside, exploring the Elk Valley, and helping protect this beautiful watershed, we are always seeking dedicated and passionate volunteers to help us out. To learn more about future events, sign up to volunteer at elkriveralliance.ca/volunteer. You can also donate to the Elk River Alliance on elkriveralliance.ca/donate.